Daily Wire reports legacy media outlets in the Biden-Harris campaign are facing blowback for picking up on former President Donald Trump predicting a bloodbath if he does not win a second term in 2024, while concealing that he was talking about the auto industry. Contextless headlines arose from Trump's speech in Ohio on Saturday, less than a week after he surpassed the requisite threshold of delegates to secure the GOP presidential nomination, paving the way to a 2020 rematch against President Joe Biden in the general election. The media coverage that ensued suggested that Trump was making a far more foreboding and potentially violent prediction for the country if he were to be defeated in November. Trump says there will be a bloodbath if he loses the election, NBC News headline blared. In Ohio campaign rally, Trump says there will be a bloodbath if he loses November election, said another from CBS News. A third from Rolling Stone trumpeted, quote, Trump says there will be a bloodbath and elections will end if he isn't reelected. The list goes on. Politico bore a similar headline and noted in its report, quote, while it was unclear what the former president meant exactly, the remarks came as Trump was complaining about the automobile industry. And then Biden's campaign released a statement about it as well. The corporate media has been in a tizzy over this the past couple of days, freaking out over the bloodbath predicted by Trump if he isn't elected. Obviously, they're construing this as some kind of threat. Trump was threatening a violent revolt, I guess, if he's not elected. That's what all the media headlines are claiming. And then you go and watch the full clip in context, and you see that, of course, as noted in the Daily Wire report, that's not what he was saying at all. Let's watch.
You know, Mexico has taken over a period of 30 years, 34% of the automobile manufacturing business in our country. Think of it, went to Mexico. China now is building a couple of massive plants where they're going to build the cars in Mexico and they think that they're going to sell those cars into the United States with no tax at the border. Let me tell you something to China. If you're listening, President Xi, and you and I are friends, but he understands the way I deal, those big monster car manufacturing plants that you're building in Mexico right now, and you think you're going to get that, you're going to not hire Americans, and you're going to sell the cars to us now, we're going to put a 100% tariff on every single car that comes across the line, and you're not going to be able to sell those cars. If I get elected, now if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole, that's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That'll be the least of it. But they're not going to sell those cars. They're building massive factories. A friend of mine, all he does is build car manufacturing plants. He's the biggest in the world.
Okay, so a bloodbath for the car manufacturing industry, as is clear in the context. There's no way to misconstrue it, honestly. Have you ever browsed in incognito mode? It's probably not as incognito as you think, and why would it be? Big tech companies have made their fortune by tracking your movements online. There's even a $5 billion class action lawsuit going on where a big tech company has been accused of secretly collecting user data. Their defense is that incognito does not mean invisible. To make yourself as invisible as possible online, use ExpressVPN like I do. Even in incognito mode, your online activity is still tracked and data brokers can still buy and sell your data. One of these data points is your IP address, but with ExpressVPN, your connection is rerouted through an encrypted server, making your IP address completely invisible. Every time you connect to ExpressVPN, you get a random IP address shared by many other ExpressVPN customers. That makes it harder for the third parties to identify you or harvest your data. Best of all, ExpressVPN is designed to be user-friendly. No matter what device you're on, phone, laptop, or smart TV, all you have to do is tap one button for instant protection, making it effortless to safeguard your online privacy. So if you really want to go incognito and protect your privacy, secure yourself with the #1 rated VPN. Visit expressvpn.com/Walsh and get 3 extra months free. That's expressvpn.com/Walsh. Go to expressvpn.com/Walsh to learn more. You know, in that context, it makes a lot more sense. Needless to say, this was not a comment that was innocently misconstrued or misunderstood. This was a deliberate propaganda campaign by the corporate press, obviously. And it shows, again, the nature of fake news. This is a perfect example of how fake news works. They're not lying about what he said, specifically in that he did make the bloodbath comment. So when they put that in quotes, like he did say that. And it's also true to say that President Trump predicted a bloodbath if he's not reelected. That's true. That alone is true. But obviously, when you frame it that way, and you have that statement alone without the context, then it leads people to completely false conclusions that you are intentionally directing them towards. And that's what they do. That's how fake news works. So when you hear fake news, you kind of think, okay, well, they're just inventing things. You know, it's just a quote that he never even said. Now they do that also, quite frequently. But generally, especially if they have anonymous sources claim President Trump said this and that. But most of the time, if they put it in quotes, he did say it. But they're isolating it, they're ripping it from its context, and they are heavily implying that that something sinister was said. And really, just by reporting on it in the first place, that alone makes it seem sinister. Because in reality, the comment isn't even newsworthy. There's nothing newsworthy about the fact that he said that. What he's saying is that the economy will be in worse shape if he's not elected. Which, that's what now in this case it happens to be true, but that's what every single presidential candidate in the history of the country has said. But this is the game, and it's kind of mind-boggling in a certain way that the media is doing this again. If you're trying to create sympathy for Donald Trump, if you're trying to move people to his side, I don't know what you'd be doing differently. This is exactly what you would do. And the media is still operating in this fantasy land. They're operating in this bubble where it's like they believe they have a monopoly over the narrative, but they don't anymore because things like Twitter exist. They cannot monopolize the conversation the way that they used to. So now, they used to be able to get a false narrative going, and it would kind of cycle around for a while before the truth gets out. But now they start with the false narrative, and immediately the truth is also being spread, and so they're competing with that, and they're quite easily exposed as the propagandists they are. But that, of course, hasn't stopped them. Hey, YouTube, thanks for listening to the show. If you'd like access to my full show with no ads, you should go to dailywire.com and use promo code Walsh to get 2 months free on all annual plans. See you there.